Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. And of course, good morning to the United States of America. Buenos dias to the entire world. Great good morning to the nooks and crannies where our 100,000 watt transmitter permeates into the people still using FM radios, etc., etc., etc. We're going to have a great program for you today. It's going to be a great day. You know what, folks? It's Friday, baby. And it's the Friday before the Monday of the what again? The eclipse. Are we going to see the eclipse this time around? I don't know. But you know what? Even if we don't see the eclipse, there's one thing we know. We're going to feel the eclipse because in Houston, I think it's something like 94, 95% or more of the sun will be blocked by the moon. And when that thermal radiation, ceased, the infrared ceased to make it to the ground, it's going to get cool. It's going to be like it's night in a few seconds. So can't wait for the eclipse. I've never seen one like the one they're talking about. So it's going to be great seeing that. Anyhow, before we go any further, let's visit our resident geniuses on Caroline and our main studios. Good morning, Heniosis. Come on. How are you guys doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, 100,000 watts across Southeast Texas, powered by Campbell Soup and String. Bring you the Egberto Show.
He is the Dr. Funk, Can, and String.
Can of
beanie weenies.
Well, we tried the beanie weenie cans at one particular point. They didn't work out so well.
Yeah, you got to flay the string to make them really pick up right.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So we just went back to the Campbell's soup cans. We upgraded from Great Value.
Oh, well, I like the Great Value stuff, man. Even when I go to HEV or one of the stores, I'm always looking for the comparable. I don't laugh, folks, but I love I don't eat it much because I'm prohibited from eating a lot of it. But I love Spam, and I found that there is some third-party low-cost Spam that you can get. So I said, let me try it. Tastes like the same darn thing. So I started using that. Yeah,
same, different label.
Yeah,
you've heard of Spamorama, haven't you?
No, what is Spamorama? Well, yeah.
Where they make different things out of Spam.
Yeah.
I just look in my Spam folder and find stuff in there.
Well, look, I like the Spam. I used to make me Spam sandwiches, Spam and eggs. You name it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, what can I say?
It's pretty tasty stuff, really.
Yeah.
It gets maligned. It gets maligned a lot, but it actually tastes pretty good. And there's a lot of salt in it. But anyway, I have nothing for you this morning. No rants or anything. I'm pretty calm. So here it's on a Friday. So I would if I were to rant about anything, it would be, the presidential candidate on the Republican side, but he gets too much publicity as it is anyway. Jack, what you got?
Well, good morning, Egberto.
Buenos dias, my brother. How are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm good. Okay. So this is about the healthcare system. State-based healthcare system for all is a brilliant path to healthcare for all. The bureaucrats use divide and conquer on the people all the time. It's about time, thanks to Ro Khanna and Ed Markey, the people get a chance to do a little divide and conquer in reverse. Get the states to go healthcare for all when the people realize the benefits of the Medicare or a Medicare tax, which we already pay to pay for our healthcare needs. I see present-day healthcare system that exploits and extorts the patient out of their resources. Let's get the icks out from between the doctor and the patient.
Works for me. Was there a vaccine for that?
Well, I think we're going to build one.
Get yourself vaccinated against political BS.
Yeah, political run healthcare system.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
That's what we get.
Days.
Yeah. That is what we have, man. You nailed it. And today, we have several items to cover. We never get to it, but you can always get to it after you listen to the program by going to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. But as usual, I always tell you, you have precedence over everything. And as the one with precedence, we never get to complete what we intend to provide you. But let me tell you something, right? Whether you call or not, we make sure to have material for you, that we know is going to be of value. So whatever we don't cover on the show, go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and you can get to it. Three major topics today. The first one is the interview that we're going to have that I did with Chuck Pennacchio. Chuck Pennacchio is One Pair State's founder, and he discusses HR 6270, which is a state-based universal healthcare system that they got sponsorship from Rokana and Ed Markey, as Brother Jack was talking about. It's an important interview, and at the end of that interview, there is a task for everybody to do. We are only going to make progress if we all participate to make progress and to demand that which is ours. We're going to talk about a bill. A lot of times we are here and we're talking about Republicans this and Republicans that and Republicans this. I want people to understand that, there's a group of folks that says, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are all in one the same. That's not true. That's false. That's a false equivalence. But there are proclivities, corporate-based proclivities, that they all share, and they all harm us, whether Democrat or Republican. And what I want to ask everybody to be is, judge every bill on its merit, judge every politician on their merit, and judge every politician not for what party they are, but for what they're doing for us all. Again, because the story that I'm going to talk about, FAA bill includes test flight for banning student loan forgiveness. It's not something that I understand was particularly pushed by Republicans, but instead by Democrats. And the other item is U.S. economy performs far better under Democrats than Republicans. I've written about this in several blogs at my site, egbertowillies.com. And there's just an article that came out, an updated article, where the trend continues. The economy absolutely does better under Democrats than on the Republicans. And when I don't know why it comes as a surprise to most or to many, because if anybody who studies economics, I'm talking economics 101, anybody who understands spending, who understands who spends money, and even if you don't call it the term, by the technical term, which I'm going to use here, the marginal propensity to consume, even if you don't use that term, that's an economics term. You have to understand that Democrats, the policies from Democrats work for higher marginal propensities to consume than Republicans. And if we get to that, I'll be able to talk about that. But we'll see. I'll probably talk about that right after Pennacchio. But let's go to Harry, since he's the first caller, and then we'll go to the interview. It's a 20-minute interview. Go ahead, Harry.
Happy Friday, TGIF, Egberto. Happy to the two geniuses, Howard and to Jack. And thank you, Howard, for playing Mr. Tao yesterday. I didn't call in yesterday, but I listened very carefully, and I enjoyed the show. And thank you for playing. I think that song was Lost Summer by Paul Hardcastle that preceded Politics Done Right. But anyway, I want to get into, and you're right about that, Egberto. When you've mentioned that many times about when you look at the records on the Democratic presidents versus the Republican presidents, and I went and followed your advice. I looked back, I think, since Franklin Roosevelt, the economy has done better under Democrats. But I have to do this. Because, Egberto, you once told me when I called on a show last year on your show that, Harry, you're very honest. And I try to be honest, and I try to tell the truth. That situation in 2019 when Brian and Bard were talking about that, why you weren't talking about that, and they misinformed the public. And I heard some stuff about it yesterday, and my brother and I went back and did some research, and I remember that night in 2019. There were a bunch of cop cars that came down the street way over in the morning when that happened, and on Lexington, and it's not too far from where I live when that happened, where my brother and I live. So anyway, what happened is a white police officer on that stand lied about the suspects having guns. And the black police officer, Gerald Moyens, didn't tell the truth to get a no-out warrant saying the suspects had drugs. And I do believe Brian and Bard said that Sylvester Turner, former Mayor Sylvester Turner, was trying to protect them and cover it up. And that is not truth. And as you always say on this show, Egberto, you like thinkers and you want people to tell the truth. And I like it when you call these people out, like Brian and Bard, when they misinform people and you correct them, and so that the public is not misinformed with their propaganda rhetoric.
Thank you very much, Harry. And look, I appreciate your calling. I appreciate your information. And I think it's time now for us to go to the interview. You keep on listening and you keep on calling out where it needs to be called out. Thank you, brother. You take care. All right. Anyway, folks, I want to go ahead and play the interview about this. And I want everybody listening now to please listen intently. And at the end of the interview, please listen to the number you need to call. And let's go ahead and get this stuff rolling. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this interview started right this second now. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Today, we are honored once again to have Dr. Chuck Pennacchio, the co-founder and president of One Pair States and the founder of Justice for All Network. Folks, he has a great piece of announcements today. First of all, Chuck, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Egberto. Thank you for having me again.
Well, look, this is important. As you know, healthcare is not just a pet peeve for many of us. We know that for the entire country, it is existential. And we also know that as the corporate control, as people start using our healthcare system as just a widget to make money for the few, it creates a big problem. You've been working very hard throughout this entire country in trying to establish some sort of a sensible healthcare system. Go ahead, first of all, and tell us a little bit about yourself to remind those who know you and to enlighten those who don't about the kind of work that you do.
Right. Just on background, I've been doing social justice work since I was really a kid, 13 years old. I'm now 64. I'm in that donut hole before Medicare. Worked on environmental issues, peace and justice, labor organizing, won a labor union at my last workplace, and got into healthcare after running for the U.S. Senate back in 2006 in Pennsylvania. And out of that race, and people said, gosh, Chuck, we're sorry you lost. And I say to people, we didn't lose. We built a movement. We built a statewide movement. And from that, we built a national movement, which gathers around this group we call One Pair States. And one payer is a reference to single payer, but it's a way of saying single payer without scaring people off, because it's a trigger for so many people out there that they hear single payer. But one payer actually opens the conversation, and we can then explain to folks what the benefits are of creating a single payer improved and expanded Medicare for all type system for the nation. Our group, One Payer States, we're a group of 25 states, a consortium of 25 states, working to adopt universal healthcare systems at the state or regional level. And our work has been enhanced by the recent introductions or reintroduction of a House bill by Ro Khanna, HR 6270. And Senator Ed Markey, for the first time, we have a Senate bill, a companion bill. Same exact legislation is in the process of being introduced in the Senate side. We just picked up Elizabeth Warren as our first co-sponsor, so the bill is ready to be introduced in the next day or two. State-based Universal Healthcare Act. And what it's designed to do is to get the waivers. It's called a super waiver bill that will get money back to the states as well as legal protection. So I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but I relocated to Washington, D.C. last September to work on this full time, and I have been for the last 6 months. We're making great headway. We have 29 co-sponsors on the House bill. And again, we're getting to work in the Senate. We just picked up Elizabeth Warren, and we have several more prospects, both in the Senate and the House. And our intention is to get this bill passed in the next Congress after the Democrats take power.
Excellent. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about the intent of the bill? What do you want to accomplish with the bill? I don't imagine it's a full-fledged Medicare for all, but it's a new approach, a bite-wise approach that we're taking. So why don't you explain what it means what will it mean if passed?
Yeah, well, we often refer to it as Medicare for all through the states. The idea here is that the states model Medicare for all systems, single payer, universal health care, guaranteed health care for everyone, comprehensive, quality, where you get to choose your provider rather than being slammed by an insurance company. So it marginalizes the insurance companies, and it puts the patient back in the center of the conversation. The patient and the provider make the decision. So it's the same concept. In fact, Pramila Jayapal, who runs the National Medicare for All bill, previously ran this bill, this legislation. She loves this legislation. In fact, most people who study politics in the United States think that we're probably going to get to national Medicare for all through the adoption of it and modeling at the state or regional level. And this is, in fact, how Canada got to national Medicare through one province, Saskatchewan. Yes. So this is our theory of change. This is our organizing model, and we have a strategy to win.
Now, so tell me, what does it entail? What are you going to do? What specifically are they going to do and maybe in a specific state that is ready to adapt it?
Okay, let's start with Oregon. Oregon is arguably the leading state in the country. It's a state with 8 congressional districts, which means it's about 3.5 million people. We would prefer to have a larger state start out, but this is the state that's leading the way. And what Oregon will do very soon is be in a position to apply to the Health and Human Services Secretary as provided for with this legislation. They put an application to the Health and Human Services Secretary demonstrating that they've got the legislation to implement a universal healthcare system. And the legislation, the state-based universal healthcare system, Universal Healthcare Act, requires that states get to 95% coverage after 5 years and that they get to 100% coverage shortly after that. In order to do that, what the waivers would do, if the Health and Human Services, the secretary will set up a panel to vet these proposals, this legislation, to determine whether it's serious or not. Once it's approved, the waiver dollars will come back to the states, the federal dollars. So states pay into the national coffers, right? They pay into Medicare, Medicaid, children's insurance, federal employees, TRICARE for military. So all of these monies will come back to the state. And the state will then create a pool, one pool. That's just the concept of single payer. You create one pool, and that administrative efficiency will allow the state to deliver universal health care cheaper, better, bring back communities, bring back hospitals. It's pro-business, it's pro-family, it's pro-schooling, because people currently pay a chunk of money in property taxes, and that money will disappear. They don't have to pay that money anymore, to property taxes that go to pay healthcare for school employees. This universal healthcare system will wrap around everybody. So the dollars will come back to the state, as well as what's called an ERISA waiver. This is getting a little bit in the weeds, but if folks want to Google
Oh,
it.
no, I know the ERISA very well. In other words, that you don't need that anymore, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. Well, what we want to do is get an ERISA waiver so that businesses are required to participate. So
Right.
this Employee Retirement Income Security Act that previously precluded states from meddling in any way with business benefits for their employees, including healthcare. So this is an important provision of this legislation.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the design.
That is excellent because, I mean, right now we have all these different pools of different healthcare, right? When you talk about having the TRICARE, then Medicare, then Medicaid, and all these other things that have to be managed differently and have so many hands involved, you've removed all of that, pool all the money together. The state gets a waiver that allows them to do that and then ensure that every single citizen in that state has healthcare. Similar to Canada, you have one card that entitles you to healthcare and everybody gets it. Is that magical or what?
And every other country in the industrialized world, the advanced industrialized world, has got a universal healthcare system, some variation of single payer.
Right.
Every single one has got coverage for all of its citizens. We are the outlier, and our citizens suffer. We pay twice as much and get a fraction of what other countries get.
And Chuck, the magic is this: is doctors' bills go down. They no longer have to have all those employees in that office to figure out what insurance company they need to get, what insurance covered this, what insurance doesn't cover that. That's gone. No longer do you have to have all these different entities that you have to get pre-qualifications for, etc. You have standards that you run by. The insurance companies, the profits that would normally go to the freeloaders and what we call the parasites are no longer there. So instead of having all that money go to things that don't control healthcare, we now bring all that money and it gives everybody healthcare without the overhead that we have that creates several CEOs, several databases, several presidents, several of all these other things gone.
Yep, absolutely.
And the patient gets to choose their doctor, their hospital. The patient is in control with their doctor. Who can ask for more?
Yeah, publicly funded, mostly privately delivered, where you have that choice. That's the beauty of the system. It's a hybrid. In fact, anybody who is even a centrist or center right should adopt this because it makes sense. It's a fiscally responsible approach. It's the only fiscally responsible approach on the horizon right now here in the United States. The other thing that it does, it allows us to bulk purchase pharmaceutical drugs, right? So we can bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals dramatically by pooling our resources and negotiating down the prices, much as the VA does, right?
Right.
Same thing with medical equipment. Medical equipment the cost of it is through the roof. These MRIs, the cost of an MRI in the United States is multiples higher than it is in Europe and Japan, way above, like 10 times.
I want people to understand this, right? The MRI pricing and the pricing of all these things are psychological mumbo jumbo. If I am inside of a hospital and I look around and nobody is using the MRI machine, I could just go ahead and stick myself in there, ask a friend to turn it on, run this stuff off. It doesn't cost a damn thing other than electricity. But when you see it on your bill, it's thousands of dollars. My wife just had a kidney biopsy. The total cost was $27,000.
That's crazy. Crazy.
$27,000. Ozempic costs 89 cents to make. They sell it for $936. WeGenic, which is a double dosage of Ozempic used for weight control, $1,300 plus. How much does it cost? $4 to make.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
That's nuts.
My friend, you are doing the supreme being's work. in fighting for making sure that the average American citizen can have the health care that they want. And what it's important is for us to carry that narrative so that the insurance companies that are about to get on board to attack this, so that the drug companies that see the light, that they won't be able to be parasitic on the people any longer. Don't get the hold on to the Americans. So it is important that you get your message out there, my brother Chuck Pennacchio.
Yeah. So what really? So you're really describing. We're describing here what I call the four horsemen from hell, and you can use that phrase if you want. The four horsemen from hell: big insurance, right? Big pharma, the big medical device industry, and the big hospital industry. The big hospitals are swallowing up all the independent docs, right? And we're losing contact. We're losing quality healthcare delivery because independent doctors struggle just to survive in this environment. So our system right now is becoming radically privatized, I think, as folks probably know, but they need to know that Medicare right now is being radically privatized through the so-called Medicare Advantage. But we call it Medicare Disadvantage.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't. It's on the face of it, it looks great. It's affordable for almost for most folks. But when you actually need healthcare, good luck. Good luck. You're in trouble.
I had a friend who just went through the whole scenario with Medicare Advantage. And you know what? The hospital says it's best for you to go back on traditional Medicare. You know what's the problem? Traditional Medicare, they by design only pays 80%, and they want you to pay the 20%. And when you go back, the Medigap that fixes that problem, which is many times, if you have a pre-existing condition, you have to go back through what's called reauthorization. I mean, you have to go back through the tables that determine what your risk profile is and makes it unaffordable. Folks, first of all, let me just tell our audience a very important thing. Do not spend the extra money. If you have it, get Medicare, standard Medicare. Do not get Medicare Advantage, which is nothing more than a racket. It's nothing more than parasites trying to live off of the taxpayer dollars and not giving you care. Continue, please, Chuck.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, these are the action steps, right? Can we move into that? What we want folks to do?
Please do.
Okay. Contact your members of Congress, the House of Representatives, and ask them to get on with HR 6270. That's the state-based Universal Healthcare Act that's being run by Representative Ro Khanna. So HR 6270, state-based Universal Healthcare Act. And also contact your two U.S. senators at this point and ask them to sign on to get on board with Ed Markey, Senator Ed Markey's introduction of the same bill on the Senate side. We want this to be a resonance across Capitol Hill. We want this conversation to percolate up. This is a bill that actually has the prospect of passing in the short term in the next Congress, because depending on how you frame it and discuss it, as we've done today, it is fiscally conservative. It saves money. It costs less. And at the same time, it delivers quality, comprehensive health care. And why? Because, as you said, Egberto, it marginalizes the insurance companies. It gets these big hospitals out of the racket of consolidating practice and ramping up the costs on the patients that are coming through the door. It controls the costs of the medical equipment, and it brings all of this into synchronicity. And this is the kind of a healthcare system that we're after. So contact, the shorthand is 202. I think it's on your website, 202-224-3121. That's the Capitol Hill switchboard. Ask for your member of the House, your two senators. Get on board with state-based Universal Healthcare Act. We're going to pass this after the Democrats win in the fall. Next year, we're going to pass this, and we're going to get states like Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, New York, Maine, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, adopting these systems and modeling. And then the magic is that these states will then become magnets for businesses that want to come in and do business in an environment where they're not paying through the nose to get health care for their employees. They want to be in an environment where they can actually predict the costs year in and year out. so they can actually budget and invest. So this is really, it's a dynamic economic stimulus. It's a jobs creation bill. Beyond being a comprehensive healthcare provider for all of our citizens, it's going to keep doctors in the system. Many of them are frustrated and retiring early. A lot of young would-be doctors who want to get into it don't do it, or they get in thinking they want to be general practitioners, and they start looking at their medical bills piling up, their tuition bills, and then they don't go into general practice. They don't go into family medicine. They go into a specialty where they'll be able to pay down their bills. So that there's a shortage of primary care physicians because of the costs of healthcare and the way that it translates in terms of medical school. So all of these issues are interconnected, and we are doing, as you said, the critical work. We break out on healthcare, and we have the belief, once again, people then believe that we can do anything in this country. Go back to what John Kennedy said and said, we can light a torch for a new generation, and then connect our healthcare issues with all the health issues. And we look at the intersection of health issues, which is housing, policing, climate. Believe me, this is the vision that we have of a universal justice for all. This is the idea, is that we get healthcare. We bring all of the components of all the other health justice movements together, and we have the political power to win on every front.
Chuck Pennacchio, that is so important. And, I want to add one corollary, and that is, imagine if businesses can concentrate on what they created their businesses for. They don't have to worry about their employees' health insurance, health care, because that belongs somewhere else. Imagine that. But anyway, let me tell you, Chuck, I always end this way. What would you like to say, or what didn't I ask that we need to get out there?
Well, I would just repeat the action steps at this point. This is why I'm here working on Capitol Hill. There are hundreds of lobbyists for all of these different medical industries. I am the designated single-payer lobbyist in Washington, D.C. at this point. I mean, this is what One Payer States is committed to, is having a presence on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. for the first time ever for a single-payer organization, a Medicare for all organization, universal health care. And I need help. I need folks to pile on from the outside to resonate with the conversations and the lobbying I'm doing on the inside. So it has to be an inside-outside strategy, right?
And that telephone number again that they need to call for their senators and congresspeople?
202-224-3121. 202-224-3121.
And the bill?
State-based Universal Health Care Act. It's House Bill 6270. House Bill 6270. It once it's introduced, it will have a Senate number attached to it as well. But right now, you can still call your members of the Senate and House and get on board with the State-based Universal Health Care Act.
Dr. Chuck Pennacchio, co-founder and president of One Payer States. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. All the work you do. Thank you.
That was Chuck Pennacchio, Dr. Chuck Pennacchio, who, he ran for Senate. He didn't make it in Pennsylvania, but he kept on doing the work. He kept on doing the work, and that is what's important, folks. The telephone number we're starting to take calls now. If you so desire, telephone number is 713-526-5738. I'll say it a little slower. 713-526-5738. Would love to hear from you right now. Please don't wait till the end of the program when I have to try to move the calls rather quickly. One more time, the call-in number 713-526-5738, extension number 2 to get you on air right away. But before I do that, even though we're not in fund drive, let me just tell folks, for those who may have a few more nickels or dimes or pieces of paper in their pockets or in their accounts, remember that this is what we do here at Public Radio, Community Radio. We inform and we give extensive coverage to things that you won't necessarily see on your regular mainstream media. So at any given time, our website is always there, willing and waiting to hear from you by going to kpft.org and hitting that donate button and saying, you know what? we love the work that you guys are doing out there. You are informing us appropriately. And as such, we want to contribute. Hit that donate button. Always remember that if you decided to hit that donate button because you heard it here, then go ahead and let it be known that it's in honor of politics, not in honor, but you're doing it under the Politics Done Right program, or given from the Politics Done Right program. Remember, I get nothing of any of these donations at all. This is to keep KPFT up and running, and that 100,000 watt transmitter doing its work to get this information out. You can also call 713-526-5738. Instead of hitting the number 2, you can hit the number 1 and say, you know what? I love what I've been hearing at KPFT. So I want to make sure and do my part that these guys can stay on air. So thank you guys in advance. But anyway, I'm taking calls. 713-526-5738. Hit extension number 2. And you'll be right here patched in to talk to me. But until calls come in, remember, support the bill. It is important. And the only way bills get supported is when you call in and let it be known that the people know that the bill exists and that you want the bill. There have been studies that's out there that show that even though Americans want X, Y, and Z, what they get is not what they want, but what they get is what corporations want. And Chuck Pennacchio tells you why. Because the corporations have a presence called lobbyists on the floors, walking with those Congress people, walking with those senators day in and day out. What did Chuck Pennacchio do? He moved himself from Oregon and Washington. He lived in both places on the West Coast. He decided to permanently reside in Washington, D.C., and become a lobbyist for the people. A lobbyist saying, I'm there to make sure that we get these bills that people need, not the ones that corporations get, which generally harms us. He's there to do that work. So let's do our part by remember what he's saying and calling the switchboard at the Capitol and talking to your congressperson and your 2 senators to let them know that they must get this bill passed. And when Oregon and Washington and Massachusetts show that they have exemplary healthcare because they don't allow the corporations to really misinform their people, and the people actually see it working in action, then we can talk about it. Then we'll have something to talk about. Before I get into the subject of the U.S. economy performing better under Democrats, let's go ahead and bring Peter into the fold.
Happy Friday,
Peter.
Egberto. And I love the State Universal Healthcare Act. That is outstanding, and I'm look forward to being one of the reps actually voting yes on that. And that was what your guest was making reference to, like matter of fact, that we're going to take control of the U.S. House of Representatives. So I'm really looking forward to that. Again, Peter Filler for U.S. House and our Texas district too. So thank you for the information. I did not know all that information. Consolidating, and it's just fiscally conservative, and you hear the Republicans talk, but they just talk too much. So they want small, limited government and less regulation. That sounds like it to me, to a T. So really looking forward to getting this passed through the House and Senate and making that universal health care a reality. Thank you so much for allowing my voice to be on your show. Egberto, as always, pleasure.
Thank you very much, Peter. Peter is actually running in Senate, in Congressional District 2 to replace my congressperson, who names right now slip me. Oh, I'm getting old.
And
who are you running? Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw, I'll be honest, Dan Crenshaw used to come across as a sensible person for a while, and he has stopped being sensible. I guess MAGA has a way of turning everybody. Even though he tries to isolate himself somewhat from MAGA, he has not been able to get away from the currents that bring you into that domain. But anyway, Peter, thank you so kindly for calling, my brother. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Too much, yeah. Absolutely.
Take care now.
I'm a public servant up there, guys. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Take care, my brother. All right, folks. The article that touched on me yesterday was one, like I said, that I've written myself at both dailycoast.com and a couple of other places, Open Op-Ed News and some other places. But it is the truth. The U.S. economy performs not marginally better, not somewhat better, but far better under Democrats than Republicans. And if in this era we take the two largest growth in the economies, in other words, at times that things really blew through the roof, we have two presidents, right? One was Ronald Reagan and one was Bill Clinton. And it always irked me that anytime they talk about an economy that is exploding, that meaning really doing well, they like to talk about Reagan. But what they don't talk about is that Clinton's economy was substantially better than Reagan's economy. And not only was it substantially better, but the growth exceeded that of Reagan. I covered that in a book that I called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. And here is the deal. It's amazing that the Republican president that had the largest growth in their economy used Keynesian economics, something that the economist Laffer that these guys like to follow, Republicans like to follow, completely anathema to what he believed in, right? Because what Reagan did was Reagan came into office in 1980 after we had the real downturn because of the oil crisis and these other crises that occurred under Carter with stagflation. And there are a lot of technical reasons that occurred. But Reagan came in, and Reagan did what his vice president, Bush's father, Herbert Walker Bush, came in and called voodoo economics. Well, Reagan didn't do any voodoo economics, folks. Reagan did standard democratic economics with a flair, right? Yeah, did he cut taxes? He cut taxes a bunch in the beginning. He raised it later, but he cut a bunch in the beginning. But that wasn't the only thing that really made the economy go fine. The taxes help, right? Because when you cut taxes, you threw more money into the economy. And if you don't backstop that tax cut with cut in services, meaning the government still spent not only the same, but more, what you've done is you have created economic activity. It's a economic fact, right? So what Reagan did is he blew up. He started building a whole lot of the military up. He built it up. So he created employment in the military sphere. He also cut taxes and he spent more. There was no president until Reagan that had that level of deficit, bar none. Reagan was the king of budget deficits. So again, what you find is Republicans say something, but they do something else. Just like how you have former President Trump talking about tax cuts and balancing the budget. He placed more based on the time that he was in office, more in the in budget deficit than just about every president. It is amazing how the talk never matches the reality. But anyway, so that is what Reagan used to get his economy going, right? And he did well. 16 million people or so got employed under Reagan. But when Brother Clinton came into office, Clinton did something else. Clinton didn't cut taxes. Clinton raised taxes. Not one Republican in Congress voted for the tax increase that Clinton passed, a big tax increase. But it was a progressive tax increase, of course. And he spent, right? He spent and he did the things Democrats do. Support for people, that sort of a thing. And what occurred was an even larger explosion in the economy, which gave you 20, I think it was 21. I'm taking this off the top of my head, but I have this all. I did all the calculations in the book where I explained the different aspects. But it turns out that Bill Clinton had 21 million people, quite a few million more employed than under Reagan, an economy that was more vibrant than under Reagan. It behooves me that Democrats don't go out there every time somebody invokes Reagan on the economy, why they don't invoke Clinton on the economy. Well, you know why, right? They don't want to talk about Monica Lewinsky, or people will bring up Monica Lewinsky and somehow quell the conversation from rational thinking to silly, childish thinking. But again, now you have the data out, and economic growth always, and this doesn't matter which Democratic president we're talking about, it always does better under Democrats. And it's not an accident, it's because of policies. And again, people can argue and they can want to say, oh, well, if you exclude this. No, again, it's broad-based. There have been many studies done out there that specifically gives the actual data. And now I can tell you categorically, it is not an accident. It is policy. It is a difference in policies for people that Democrats supports versus Republicans. And we have to understand that those differences are real. Whenever you do economics, there is something called the marginal propensity to consume. And what that means is, if you want to have economic activity, if you have somebody that makes $1 billion and somebody that makes $500, and you have monies, and you need to provide access to money, access to things, access to credit. If you go ahead and give tax cuts to the billionaire, he says, whoa, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and invest that tax cut in Japan, or I'll buy some stocks here and there. But when I give it to that person who makes $500, he goes ahead and he says, hey, baby, I can take you out to dinner tonight. Oh, baby, we can buy this new stuff. Hey, guy, we can buy these other things. And you know what that means? That's economic activity locally. And if that restaurant gets more people and they buy more bread, more meat, more of all these things, that moves the economy, because now that baker has to buy more flour. That flour maker has to go to the farmer and buy more wheat, and everything starts to grow as opposed to being concentrated. It's a philosophical difference that can be materially seen. That's why Republican policies generally fail. And again, Eric Hayes in the chat says it makes people poorer. Again, the math is absolute. You can choose to see the math, or you can choose to be ideological. I just give the facts. Let's go to Terrence, line 2.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Terrence, you're on line 2. Come on in.
Well, in the 1980s, one of the reasons that the economy did so well, and it had nothing to do with Ronald Reagan, was they started using microcomputers. All these microcomputers started coming online, and that was a tremendous boost to productivity in this country, and that really it contributed to the positive economy in the 1980s. I don't know how many people realize that, but these microcomputers were something was a leap forward.
Absolutely, there are a lot of factors that's completely anathema to what Reagan believed in, or the things that Reagan stood for, that actually made the economy really, really, that did very well under him. But it's amazing that even with the economy doing well under him, when we got Clinton into office, because he used the same policies that Democrats generally stand for, which put the monies closer to the people, because of, again, marginal propensity to consume. Clinton had a monstrous economy. We have yet to see that kind of growth. Well, people would look at Biden's economy and say, well, look, Biden got in his first year, I don't know, over 15 million people. But a lot of that, if you want to be honest about, was the re-employment of people after a pandemic. So we have to be honest as far as how many jobs were actually created under Biden. It's a really good number, but it still doesn't match to what we actually had in the Clinton years, which by far exceeds all of the presidents in our lifetime. Go ahead, Terrence.
So that's all I've had to say.
Well, look, thank you.
It's not worth it. So goodbye.
Thank you so kindly for calling in, Terrence. All right, let's go ahead and go to Brian. Come on in, Brian.
Yeah, I still want to dwell on Sylvester Turner and his waste of time and capital and money and effort to make the city go forward instead of behind. Okay. For $640 million in debt due to his policies. Direct involvement in his policies for $640 million in debt.
I like when people say, I don't like talking points. Tell me what specific policy that he had that created that $640 million in deficit that you think is attributed to Sylvester Turner. What specifically?
Did the city of Houston vote for and obtain a pay raise for the firefighters, and did he not give it to them?
First of all, wait a minute. I agree with you that the people voted to pay. No, wait. That's what I'm doing. I agree with you that the people voted to give the fire personnel a salary increase, and I completely disagreed with Sylvester not going through with that. There's no doubt about that. Now, that said, I'm not going to argue with you about that, because you're right. I mean, the people in Houston said we want to give the firefighters that money. But here is the caveat. It's easy to vote and say we want to bring the firefighters up to par with police officers, which I think they should. But also, the people who voted should have also voted and say we are going to vote to raise taxes to pay for that. But you see, it's easy to go ahead and say we want to support our first responders. When you start to say, but you need to pay the taxes if you want them to have the salaries that you say they deserve, which I do think they deserve, which I'm willing to pay the taxes for. But too many people are not willing to do that. They want to see these guys paid, but they don't want to pay the increased taxes to support that. Continue, sir.
I believe it was a referendum to sell bonds to exactly pay for them.
But wait, let's stop. Okay, let's stop there. So then you are saying you want us to go into debt to pay a standard operating cost. That's not fiscally responsible.
But not paying for them and having the
wait. You didn't answer my. I mean, again, based on who, question. Brian, based on who you are,
you just said.
I did answer your question. What did you want me to say?
I want you said, what physical responsibilities should we take? And I answered it. And you said, okay, well, blah, blah, blah. And you blew off the answer. No,
again, you see, that is, let me just stop you there, Brian. One of the problems that we have with many people that, and respectfully, like you, is you come on here with some bad information. And then when you're corrected, you don't want to listen to that information that when you're corrected, because you have this tunnel vision and you don't want to see things don't see the things the way they really are. Again, I copped and I said, Sylvester didn't do what the people said tell him to do, but to tell him to do something with money he doesn't have is fiscally irresponsible. That's what I'm saying. And hold on. And what Whitmire did is Whitmire came in and said, okay, we're broke, but we are going to go ahead and give these raises. That's not what Whitmire should say. Whitmire should be honest. Whitmire should come out and say, we don't have the monies to pay the firefighters. And since the people voted for the firefighters, we are going to raise the taxes necessary to pay the firefighters what the people voted for the firefighters for. Don't you agree that is a responsible thing to do?
Yes. Okay, I'm quickly running out of time. Other irresponsible things that Sylvester Turner did. He hired his male lover intern for $140,000 a year. There was $790,000 that he spent in Hollywood trying to get movies made here in Houston, and not one single one was done. How many millions of dollars did Sylvester Turner deal out to his friends for water repair? It was millions. Millions. You know that the international airport, that has been being rebuilt under Sylvester Turner for more than 10 years. 10 years. And they still haven't finished it. There is a company in Bogota, Colombia that runs this. That's who Sylvester Turner hired. Check into it.
Okay. Brian, thank you for calling, Brian. I got to go to the studio. But, look, Sylvester wasn't perfect, but Sylvester was no different than most of our mayors. But I think you're harder on him than you should. Anyway, thank you so kindly for calling, Brian. Let's go to the studio. Come on in, studio.
Well, don't have a thing here. Just happy Friday. Have a good weekend. Jack, what you got? You looks like you got a page of wisdom there.
No, that was already.
Oh, closing wisdom. Come up to the mic.
Well, just that HR 6270, where they want the states to start paying healthcare costs, single payer healthcare costs, and that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Back to you. Wrap it up.
Thank you very much, folks. Look, thank you, callers. Thank you, listeners. Love you all. Let's continue doing this. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.